I remember the sound of the ocean at Iwo Jima, not the crash of waves, but the low geological murmur beneath the black, volcanic sand, a sound that seemed to be the island itself breathing. I stood there years later, and I felt the heat of the past rising, not from the sun, but from the million tons of steel that tore this place apart. My mission was to decode the final whispers, the secret testament of a man determined to turn 5 square miles of sulfur and ash into the grave of an empire. I was looking for the mind of Lieutenant General Tadamichi Kuribayashi. He was the architect of this hell, and as I read his lost letters, I realized I was not looking at a monster of war, but at a man, a father writing his last will and testament to a civilization he knew was already lost. We, in the intelligence rooms, had seen the plans for the invasion, Operation Detachment, and the initial assessments were swift, 3, maybe 4 days. I knew those estimates were a lie, born of hubris. They hadn't factored in Kuribayashi's vision. I saw how he defied 400 years of Japanese military doctrine, no banzai charge, no glorious futile rush into the guns. Instead, he forced his 21,000 men to live like moles, burying themselves in 18 miles of tunnels, caves, and pillboxes, turning the island into a single, massive, intricate, interconnected fortress. He understood the terrain, the volcanic rock, the black sand that swallowed every shell and every footstep, and he turned our greatest advantage, our overwhelming naval and air superiority, into a psychological torment. I read his order: each man must kill 10 of the enemy before he is allowed to die. It wasn't about winning, it was about cost. He was determined to make the price of this volcanic speck so high that the thought of invading the Japanese mainland, of attacking the true home islands, would become unthinkable. He was sacrificing his men not to save Iwo Jima, but to buy time and terror for the future. When I tracked the path of the Marines on those beaches, I saw the horror unfold. The first waves landed on that soft, yielding sand, and I could hear the echoes of their footsteps sinking, making traction impossible. The promised air cover had turned the surface into a lunar landscape, yet the Japanese defenders, safe 30 feet below, were untouched. Then, the silence broke, not with a roar, but with a sudden, surgical, concentrated eruption of machine gun fire from points we thought had been vaporized. I saw the hollow focus in the eyes of the survivors, the look of men fighting ghosts who attacked from holes in the ground, dissolving back into the earth before the shot could be returned. I remember the stark contrast. I am sorry I cannot join you in the spring, he wrote, but I have been given a noble assignment that I must fulfill for the Emperor and for our family's honor. I felt a terrible, profound confusion in reading those lines. How could a man so deeply rooted in the simple tenderness of home be the same man orchestrating this systematic, apocalyptic slaughter? It revealed the central paradox of the war, that the men we fought, the ones who seemed like forces of nature, were in the final analysis simply men clinging to the small tokens of humanity as they prepared to die. The battle raged for weeks, not days. We took Mount Suribachi, and I remember the photographs, the iconic image of the flag raising, but I knew, and the Marines knew, that it was not the end. It was only the midpoint. The real war was still being fought in the dark, where flamethrowers were the only way to clear a room, and grenades were the standard greeting. Kuribayashi was still down there, somewhere in the cold, claustrophobic darkness, rationing water and ammunition, moving his headquarters between tunnels, becoming a part of the rock itself. I felt the psychological toll it took on our own men, the grinding attrition. The knowledge that there was no such thing as a clean victory here, only a slow, painful extermination. The defenders had accepted their fate. They had already died in their minds, and a man who has accepted death is a terrible enemy to face. I followed the chronology of his last days, piecing it together from captured documents and the shifting lines on my maps. The water ran out, the food ran out, the tunnels became choked with the dead and the wounded, the air thick with the smell of sulfur, sweat, cordite, and decay. Yet, the resistance continued, fueled by a terrifying blend of duty, desperation, and the sheer inertia of having come this far. I tracked his final, sporadic transmissions. The messages became shorter, less formal, more desperate reports of position, requests for non-existent reinforcements, and finally, a simple, raw acknowledgement of the end. The final night, March 26th, was not a battle. It was an execution. Kuribayashi, possibly wounded, likely disguised, led a final, desperate, small charge against an American encampment near the beaches. It wasn't the glorious bonsai charge he had forbidden. It was the final, messy, unceremonious lurch of a dying command structure. I heard the crackle of the last radio intercepts, just static, a low, guttural cry, and then silence. His body was never positively identified, which I believe he engineered as his final act of defiance. He denied us the symbolic victory of his capture, choosing to vanish back into the black sand he had so brilliantly fortified. And then I returned to his final poem, written just before the end, transcribed from the hand of his adjutant. It wasn't a poem of aggression or victory, but of profound regrets. He asked the emperor and the nation to forgive him for not capturing the island, but to remember the loyalty of his men, whose deaths are like jewels shattered on the beach. I felt a terrible, searing clarity in that moment. I realized that the $6,821 Americans and the $20,000 Japanese who died here were not simply casualties in a military operation. They were the final, physical currency in Kuribayashi's dark bargain, the ultimate sacrifice meant to spare the Japanese mainland. I still hold the memory of those letters, not as relics of a defeated enemy, but as testaments of a shared human burden. War stripped everything away, leaving only the essential, a man's last thoughts of home, etched onto rice paper amidst the inferno, juxtaposed against a ruthless military machine. And I ask myself now, watching the waves erase the footprints on that black beach, what price are we willing to pay? What sacrifice is truly final when the only record is a whisper in the dark preserved by those who survived to tell the story? I will never forget the taste of that sulfur in the air, or the terrible color of that sand.